Now, everyone's making it in film and TV, but we don't really know how. Here, we uncover the truth. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast. Welcome to the Your Cinema podcast, where we explore the truth about film, TV, and theatre and hear it directly from those who are smashing it in their areas. Today, we've got one of the most talented directors I know. He's absolutely passionate about films. And I remember last time we spoke, he said he watches a film a day. And
Mm.
we can see the influences and the effects of that in his work. For me, and I'm sure many others, but I know for me personally, he has made what I would probably consider the most beautiful short that I've ever seen in his short film appreciation. And
Right.
yeah, I've always been excited about his journey and his career because I feel like, God has made him one of the greats. So I introduce to you guys Tomisin Adepeju. What's going on, bro?
Really well, my brother. Really, really well. So thank you so much for that introduction. Thank you so much. That's yeah, it's nice to be back here again after our last session 7 years ago. I think 7, 8 years
Yeah.
ago. So we're older and wiser, hopefully. you know. So
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
so
Now I know. So last time we caught up, we touched on like a lot of, your journey up to that point. But I
mm,
kind of want to pick up from around about maybe a year or two after, right? Specifically
mm,
when you did appreciation, because it seems like that was like a pivotal piece of work for you,
mm, yeah.
at least from the outside, in terms of like the quality of it, the accolades and certain festivals that it got accepted into. So I want to kind of unpick and know what life was like for you around the time that you did appreciation.
Oh wow. Yeah. So that was 2018. I shot the film 2018. I
Mhm.
recall, and it came out I think probably 2019. So yeah, the film is interesting because the journey of the film was fairly a long one. Writing the film took, I would say, I wrote it in I think 1 hour, but the actual writing process took sort of 3, 4 years in just the idea stage, and then realizing what I wanted to say and why I actually wanted to say it in the way that I wanted to say it in. So that took about 3 years because I had the idea, and then it changed over time as well. Um, and then once I knew what the theme was, I wanted to explore because appreciation, for those that haven't seen the film, it's a film that explores grief and loss, and it's anchored around a pastor who loses her faith when her son is killed, effectively.
Mhm.
And so the film, its life, sort of, it was originally at first about a son who loses his mom. So that was what it was anchored on at first, but then I just realized it just wasn't quite right for me. It just wasn't working, and I think I read an article actually in 20 sort of March May 2017, and
Mhm.
that article was really what I think inspired the form that it took. So this article, it was about this young man who was killed. It was killed on his way home from church. He was just walking home, and the tragedy of it is not only was he killed on his way home from church, he was killed in front of his mother. So she witnessed the whole thing, which is really tragic. And the article though, which was on the Metro, the boy's name wasn't there. There was nothing really that humanized him. It was he was really articulated as a stat. Just one more black boy killed. I think they said how old he was. He was 27 years old, but his name wasn't there. He was almost sort of faceless. And it was so tragic, but I was so moved by this because I was around the same age at the time when I read that article. And he lived fairly close to me as well. And I thought, wow, this could have been me. And then it became even more tragic when I learned that the boy was simply at the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, these four guys that rushed him thought it was somebody else. And his life was just a case of mistaken identity. And I thought that's such a horrible way to go in that sense. And I was so inspired by what I read. I thought, let me look into this deeper. And I found an interview with his mother. She did an interview for BBC News. I think it was Newsnight, 7:30 p.m. And it was a Nigerian woman, and probably in her late 50s. And she had just lost her son a few days ago, but she embodied so much strength that was so moving. She was there, all this lights were on her face, and she just carried herself so well. Because despite the immeasurable grief she was going through, there was this poise that she embodied. She was obviously she wanted to cry, but she was holding back the tears. And all she said was, my son was not a gangster. He was not this. He had just, he had just gotten his master's program done. My son had plans. He had dreams. And then she appealed to anybody who knew about who these men were that killed her son. But there was something about seeing that interview with her that really made me realize what my film was going to be about, which is really about a Nigerian mother who mourns the loss of a son. So that was what I had then, but then which disrupted the narrative I had before, which was going to be about a son who loses his mother. But she was just incredible, and her grace and power was, yeah, so profound. And then writing that took then 2 years, just trying to work out, okay, you know, at what point do we meet her in the story? And then as a man of faith, I thought it would be more compelling to have her be a pastor of a church, because then that way I could explore themes around not just grief and loss, but filter that through the lens of a pastor who questions why a God she loves would take everything she loves. Right? How can you serve a God that takes everything you love? I mean, that was the question that really inspired the film. So I had the idea, and then once I knew exactly what I wanted to say with it, once I knew what all the beats were in the story, I wrote it in 1 hour. I wrote it literally August 2018. I think August 6th or 7th. And once I knew it, I had met back then a young DOP called Olan Koladi, who's now big time, but I met him. We had a coffee a few weeks back, and I told him, because he wanted to work on something together. He had seen my previous short films, and he was just like, I love your work. I'd also seen his work, and I thought it was beautiful, and I really wanted to work with him. So, and I said, you know what, I might reach out for a project. I'm not sure, because at that point I had not written appreciation yet. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
once I wrote it, I just thought I need to make this quickly, right? So I either WhatsApped him, I texted him or called him and said, okay, I've got the short film, I've just written it. It's a first draft, but I think it's ready. Are you interested in shooting this at the end of the month? So we're talking, this is 3.5 weeks. And he was just like, yeah, okay, cool. He hadn't read the script. I gave him like a rough outline, but it was like, yeah, send it to me. I'm free. And I'm like, damn, this, there's something about, because his passion and his energy. I was like, great, so I've got a DOP now. So let me now try and get a crew together. And yeah, we got the crew together in 3.5 weeks. Through Orlan, we got an art director. And then I just utilized a lot of my friends to work on the film. I had two great producers on the film. A guy called Tony Long, incredible, incredible guy, and Erlitha, incredible producer as well. So we just went on it. We just and we made the film, and the film was I didn't have any money for it, so it was mostly savings, and my church gave me like £2,000.
Ah,
Friends chipped in. My parents gave me some money. I used a lot of my savings, and it was actually shot in my church because I thought I don't have to pay for the space, right? It's my church, and what
yeah,
I did was I got all the extras in it were church members as well. Most of the extras were church members, and we shot it in 2.5 days at the end of August. And and it was just you always know when you write something that and it works. You just know that all you need is to get a good enough team to realize what's on the page. But it just felt so personal to me, and I felt it was a very timely story. And working with Orlan, I think, definitely changed and transformed my voice as a filmmaker, because when you work with an artist who understands his craft, you are so deeply inspired by that. He challenged me, pushed me, and it's, I always say this, the first time where I had an idea to make a film and the film turned out pretty much close to what I imagined. Because in most cases it's always 60%. It's never quite as you imagine it, but with appreciation, it really was. And I thought, damn, it should always be like this. Why isn't it always like this? But I realized that it was never like this because you don't work with people that perhaps understand what you're trying to make, or you're on different pages, right? But on appreciation, we're just all on the same page. And, it was like 10, 11K it cost me altogether. And yeah, but it's mostly a film in one location, really. The church is the sort of central arc of the film. And
Yeah.
we see a we see a character who is forced to navigate one of the most traumatic times in her life. So yeah.
Mm.
So I made a film, and I went to festivals 1 year later, and played some festivals, and that was really what I think after making that was when I got signed, here, and yeah, so it definitely helped massively.
I love that, and it's such a beautiful film, man. Like hearing that
Thank you, man.
backstory, like wow, like
Yeah.
you're an artist. Like you had the idea, you stewed on it for 3-4 years, and then you were moved, and then it's yeah, it just makes sense because you post like it might look random to certain people, but you post loads of like archived images and like films that you watch, but the
Mm.
passion behind when you're explaining why you like certain films is like the way you watch films. Like yeah,
It's
it's
a
like
yeah, it's a
what
love
you take
affair.
in, it gets poured out when you then make. So
Oh, thank you so much, man. I always just say this as my watching habits has definitely sort of shaped the films I make, and I think it's important to watch, and I only realized the importance of it, I think, after leaving film school, because in film school there were a lot of films that were being quoted, but I just not seen it, and I thought, as somebody who wants to make films, you have to understand the history and language of the craft, especially as a film director. There's so much that I've learned just in the past 4 or 5 years of just watching films relentlessly, but also watching it, seeing it as it's work. It's a craft. I'm learning about these classic films, and yeah, so I have to watch regularly. It's like a baker who doesn't bake, or who doesn't immerse himself in recipes, or it's like an artist who doesn't go to exhibitions, or a
yeah,
writer who doesn't read. It doesn't A filmmaker that doesn't watch it, I don't understand it. I think for me, I just see it as, for me, it's like breathing. I know it sounds intense, but it's like breathing. I feel strange if I go a week without seeing a film, at least 3 or 4 films. It's almost like I'm watching these films, and it's subconsciously been stored somewhere. So when I make films, I don't just think, oh, I want to make a film like that film I saw. It just comes out naturally. And without you realizing, your taste and your voice becomes profoundly shaped by what you see. But I make it a case in point to watch everything. So I don't just watch classic cinema, or like,
yeah, yeah,
Ozu, or, Carl Dreyer, or Tarkovsky. I watch, Marvel films. I watch everything,
yeah.
good or bad, because you have to just take, and then you filter in the stuff that is good for you, and you remove the stuff that doesn't work for you.
I'm
So yeah.
learning. You should teach. So
Mhm.
appreciation has come out, right? Um, what happened after? Like like in that space of time, let's say 2 years, 2 to 5 years after appreciation, what were
Mm.
your plans and versus what actually happened?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I had no expectations about the film. I just was so happy that the film worked and people liked it, and because interestingly, I'd made a film before appreciation that got into Sundance, a film called The Right Choice.
Mhm.
It got into that festival, and I thought after getting into that festival, everything will happen. I'll get signed, and people will be sort of emailing me, Thompson, what are you doing next? But didn't quite happen in that way, and nothing really happened after that Sundance short.
Mm,
And I realized that because I didn't write the film, it was a film that I was approached to direct, and it was a sort of
mm,
sci-fi Black Mirror type short.
mm, mm,
But with appreciation, I got signed to my UK agency because he saw the trailer and then uh, reached out to me and said, "Oh, I love this film," and then he'd seen my earlier work, that I made, and I realized that appreciation was the combination really of a lot of my short form work. And yeah, so what happened was, yeah, I got into festivals. I got into BFI Film Festival, which is a festival that I really loved, and
yeah.
a lot of festivals that had rejected me sort of accepted me. So I thought this is a good sign. I was turned down years ago with all these films, but now I'm being accepted in these films. So,
Mm,
and then I did a lot of schemes. Like I did network at LFF. It's a great scheme, which
mhm.
is brilliant. I did the Edinburgh Talent Lab as well
Wow.
at the festival in 2019. I did that. So I just did a lot of things, and everything was going. It was buzzing. It was great. I was being booked meetings with my agents, and naturally I thought it's got to be a feature now. That's the next. I
Oh,
mean,
so,
that's
so
mm,
hold on, right? Hold
yeah.
on. Actually, what was it like getting signed? Like, what was the experience of, cool, you get signed. What then happens? What changes?
A lot changed, but also a lot didn't change. Funny. It's good to be signed. It's definitely helped me because I think agents they have a secret WhatsApp group or something, a secret email link where they have all the contacts for all the production companies that you have to meet. So I think that being signed allowed me access to have meetings with people like Film 4, BBC Films, and
Mm,
BFI, and but also other companies that are making films. So my agent definitely gave me that access. But also, it looks good as well. You're with this person, they rep you and they support you. So it was good having that.
mhm.
But really not much really changed as well because it's like, yeah, I was getting these meetings, but it wasn't translating into paid work, So it's
Yeah.
good to have meetings, but yeah, sometimes you just keep meeting people and you're like, okay, you're gonna offer me something, yeah, yeah. I mean, what does also helps with having agents is you can get seen for directing TV work, which I was seen for a lot of that
Mm,
as well. Interviews I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't have an agent. So in that sense, it was quite useful to
mm,
have an agent. Um, but in terms of what changed, not a lot because I was kind of still, I wouldn't say hustling, but I was still sort of navigating this space, feeling like an outsider, which is a strange feeling.
mhm.
You feel like you're not quite accepted, and people love your work, but they're not saying, right, okay, do you want to make a feature? Here's 1.5 mil, here's 2 mil, or let's develop your idea. But saying that, so when I made appreciation, then I got signed. The next conversation with my agent was, okay, what feature do you want to make? And I was going to make a film I made called The Good Son. I was going to make
Mhm.
that into a feature. Yeah.
Oh,
But
that
then I
would have been
realized,
nice.
yeah, that would have been great. But then I realized now it wasn't really, sometimes you force features and that was forced. It just,
Yeah.
the script I wrote was just a long short film, effectively. So, yeah,
Mm,
which was humbling because I did spend 3-4 years on that script, and I think it's good to. I'm so blessed that I didn't make the film because it wouldn't have been good because it just. I was forcing it. I was wanting to. Everyone kept saying, "Wow, this will make a great feature," but you have to understand sometimes what type of work or form a project should take. And with that film, it was a short film. It
mm,
really, its
mm,
life wouldn't have been improved in any way if it was a feature film. So that idea was rested. So I didn't really have any other ideas, and yeah, I didn't really have any other ideas. And but I was just taking meetings, a lot of meetings, and they were great. But then COVID happened in 2020,
mm.
and that was, I think, for a lot of artists, regardless of any of the medium you practice in, it was hard because everything really shut down for a year and a bit. So from
Mm.
2020, I went into a state of, I just basically watched more films. I just was kind of just felt a sense of restlessness, which we all felt. And in that time, I created a podcast called The Directing Lens, which was really
Mm.
cool. And what I did was in that time, I wrote a script with my good friend, as a guy called Paris Zasila.
Okay.
Paris made a film called The Raging Grace,
Mhm.
which came out actually last year. And Raging Grace is a powerful feature film, and it actually played South by Southwest and won
Um,
two big prizes there. But Paris and I, we linked up via a scheme we did at the BFI in
yeah.
2019, and then in lockdown we just we were both interviewed for the BFI network scheme online, and after
Yeah.
that we just got to chatting, and Paris was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then he's like, "Oh, I've got a feature script, Raging Grace, that I want to write." And then in that time, I just appreciation as a feature never crossed my mind. Really, it was always going to be a short, but
Mm,
the appreciation is a very spiritual film, and I think I had a spiritual experience that made me realize how I could make the short work as a
mhm.
feature,
Yeah.
and that feature became The Light of the Living, which is what I'm currently working on now with Jack O'Brien at 16 Films. So yeah, so that became The Light of Living. But I had the idea during lockdown, and it was really a spiritual experience. I think I say God just planted the idea in my head and
Mm,
gave me the vision, and I wrote it with Paris. We both, so he was writing Raging Grace, I was writing mine, and in a span of 4 months, we would send each other drafts of our scripts. He would read 10 pages, and I wrote from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. over a period of 3-4 months, and it was incredible because, I wasn't working, I was at home, and I felt so restless that I think writing the script definitely helped me, because even prior to that time, I was watching a film a day.
yeah.
I was going at it. And I
That's when I
gained
spoke with you, actually. Yeah, 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 yeah.
and I
Yeah.
gained so much weight because I was just eating chocolates and sweets, and like I gained weight. My dad was just like, "Look at yourself. You're," because I wasn't healthy. Because imagine you're watching films, you're not really moving,
Yeah.
so you're still, and then you're eating unhealthily. And but when I started writing the feature, I just found my habits changed. I had a purpose. I could get up and research, and I interviewed my mother, who's a pastor. I interviewed a lot of pastors, and I did research into just translating a short into a feature. It's a completely different language entirely, and I had to unlearn a lot of my short film habits, because with short films, there's really one beat. You're trying to culminate the action in one beat, one moment.
Mhm.
But with a feature film, Act One, Act Two, turning point, Act Three. Like there's a lot of, So I read a lot of books and watched a lot more films, even more. And yeah,
Mm.
and I wrote. I had a first draft of the script by the end of 2020. So yeah.
So you've got the script ready, right?
Mm.
This opportunity's come about. What was what's the process now in terms of like from the script being ready all the way to you're on set, that development process in between, what's that looking like for you right now?
It's different for everybody. It depends if you're developing your film with BBC Films, or if you're doing it with BFI or with Film 4. It's a different process. And I think the process, there is no, just like making films and being an artist, there's no one way of doing anything. And
Mhm.
that's one of the beauty, but equally the challenges of being a filmmaker. I wish there was a manual, some kind of if you want to become a lawyer, there's a very clear pathway, right? If you
Yeah.
want to become a doctor, you can't skip certain pathways. Like it's a very specific process. When you want to become a writer or a film director, there is no process. And when you're developing a feature, there is no process, because the process is dependent on where you're developing it, who you're with, but also how hot you are. Is your name being mentioned on people's lips, or are you trending? There's a lot of factors involved in that process. And with mine, my name wasn't trending. I wasn't really hot on anyone's lips, so it was kind of just yeah. So I'd had a script 2020. Um, I just try to get it sent out there. And thankfully, I had the short film appreciation. I was like, okay, I'm making a feature version of the script. And people were like, wow, beautiful short. But maybe you should make one more short. And I'm just like, but you know, Appreciation is like my fifth short. Do I really need to make one more short? I mean, they're like, yeah, I. So people loved. So people that read the script, feature script, thought it was beautiful, but they were just like, I don't know. They just felt that I should make one more short. It was either that or it just wasn't maybe right for them, which is fine, you know. So there was just a lot of
But
challenges.
why? What? Did they give context as to why? Just in case I'm missing something.
I think because also, you know, I was going out to people in 2021.
Yeah.
Our position came out 2019. Like it's 3 years. You know, you're not it's so strange because it's a long time in the film world. It's like 2 years. In that time there's newer shorts, there's newer
Mm.
people that are being spoken about. So your
So
work
they felt that maybe you need more experience, like get another one under your belt
yeah,
so we can
yeah.
trust you with the
But
money.
also
Okay.
exactly, but also a more ambitious short. So Appreciation was a 10, 11K short. They felt maybe a 30, 40K short, something a bit more yeah, you know,
Serious.
yeah, the means I was having, it was like, okay, perhaps if you made something that was 40, 50K, so that way it's a natural progression from doing that to then doing your first feature film. So that was really the conversations. But it varied, man. It varied from the people I spoke to. Like some said, yeah, perhaps if you do you know, one more show, or the feature just wasn't right for them
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I my feature is about it's a coming of age film about a woman in her late 40s. It's
Yeah.
a very specific theme and subject matter.
Mm,
So ultimately you have to develop your film with a platform that really believes in that and believes that, you know, this narrative is commercial enough or is it out enough. So there's a lot of conversations and questions that are had. So it's
yeah.
hard to pinpoint exactly what. Yeah, but that's the nature of this industry. You know, there is no rational explanation sometimes. You just have to, yeah, accept, you know, accept what's going on, but also do what you can do. So I was being proactive in that period, you know, and I was thinking maybe do I do one more short film? You know, but I was getting meetings. My agent was getting me meetings with everybody, which was really good as well. So
Mm,
yeah, it's a very strange time, I think, around that
yeah. No,
2021,
that's amazing.
2022,
Because I guess
where I
with
was
I
having
Am
meetings about the
Joseph,
film.
that is like
Yeah.
that's not your like it's not like with I Am Joseph, that's not your it's not your it's not the kind of short film that you can kind of make with what you have around you. Like
Mm,
like with appreciation, it's very real life and certain things are accessible, right? But with I Am Joseph, it's like, no, you're gonna have to get a specific type of costume. You have to shoot in the woods. You have to like there's a lot more around it. So I I think when I know you're capable anyway, but I feel like even just those two shorts, appreciation and I Am Joseph, is like, nah, you're quite competent. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
that was quite surprising, but I guess yeah, each to their own, innit?
Everyone's process is different, you know. And with
Yeah.
I Am Joseph, it's a period drama, so it's set
Mm,
sort of 40s, 50s. Um, so yeah, but I think people have what they're looking for, and if you don't perhaps fit into that mode, you know, then you. And if you want to get your work made, you have to perhaps do what they want. You know, it's the nature of the industry, and yeah, and I think that's what makes me very excited about it, but also sometimes frustrated about it because, you know,
mm,
I love film so much, but we're working in a system that certain things are required to make your film, and you know, I mean, Raging Grace, I mentioned that film because Paris has made the film, and when he told me that he found funding to make the film, it was really wonderful, you know, the fact that he could make the film because he also found it difficult, you know,
mm,
for the first year to find funding, but then he shot it, you know, I think he found multiple source of income. He
mhm.
was just very proactive and intentional about how he went about trying to find money, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what I'm also doing as well. You can't just rely on the same sources that every British filmmaker is going to get the same money from. Like, there's only so many films that can be made. So I do understand that as well.
Yeah.
That you have to, yeah, there's only so much they can make. So
Oh,
no, it doesn't matter how good you are. There's so many talented filmmakers.
yeah.
Like, and there's the breadth of films coming from like film school people like NFTS and LFS, Met Film School. There's so many talented films every year. So yeah, it's difficult to fund films, in this country.
No, I love that. Thank you for the insight. Now, I wanted to ask you something, right? On a deeper level, and it was basically like, for me, I've always seen like you, Kobe, Ajani, and Cornelius as like the Rat Pack. You know, like the Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, and all
Yeah,
of
yeah,
that,
yeah, yeah.
right? In terms of like the wave of and the timings of when you guys were making like significant pivotal pieces of work, right? And like everyone's doing great in their own way, but
Mm,
I was catching up with Remy Moses the other day, and he mentioned just about like feeling pressure from when your peers are doing well while celebrating them, but maybe feeling like you're not doing enough. And
mm,
I wanted to ask, like, have you experienced that, like in the past years? Maybe not now, but like in that time where appreciations come out, and it's like, oh, maybe it will lead to this, and it's like, oh, I
mm,
don't know.
mm, mm,
But yeah,
mm. Oh
just
yeah, most definitely. I think we're humans, and I think that we're filmmaking is a very emotional experience. Yeah, it's deeply emotional, and yeah, sometimes when you see your peers doing well, it's a mixture of, I think, elation for them, but also frustration for you, because not to sort of dampen their shine, or to you know just, I think you're happy for them, definitely, but you're just unhappy for you, because you're
Mm,
like,
mm, mm,
they're eating, they're doing well, and they're getting this love, and all you want is the opportunity to be seen and to be appreciated. That's all we really want, and we don't want to get the acclaim, ahead of anybody else, or we don't want to, me personally anyway, I don't want to jump past people, or because I'm doing well, Kobe can't do well. Because I'm doing well, Johnny can't do well. No, I want all of us to do well, and we can all do well. But definitely in the, in that period where appreciation came out, and post COVID, it was just frustrating. You question your purpose. You're like, am I
mm,
really meant to do this? Because I'm good at other things, and not to just sound egotistical or anything. I
mm,
think my parents always say that, well, my dad specifically says, Thomason, you're good at other things, that. So yes, you can make films, but there's so much skills you have. And he's right. Like, there are other things I can do, but this is the only thing I want to do, really. So it's just what I feel I have been born to do. So it's just not, I can't not do it. It's not like it's optional. Like, this is something I think I feel deeply. So that's why it hurts so much when you just don't get the love you feel you have worked for,
mm,
the acclaim, the appreciation. All we want really is a chance to be seen, our work to have value, because we don't make the work to sit on our laptops. We make the work to have an audience, to have a platform. And unfortunately, for a lot of filmmakers, and with how difficult and expensive festivals are, it's so tough just to get the work seen and loved. And when Appreciation got the love, I thought, okay, this will translate to perhaps more. I just wanted to make more films, right?
yeah.
And it was difficult to really do that. So yeah, I'm blessed now that I've got those brothers around me. So Colby's been doing it sort of immensely well, and every time I see that, there's a joy that I can't explain, because his success is my success, because
Mm,
we talk about everything. He even called me yesterday, and for over an hour, we talked about God, we talked about films, we talked about our features, purpose. Like, every time I leave the call with Kobe, I feel challenged. I feel deeply inspired. Same thing with Mr. Salmon. yeah, Dreaming Whilst Black is sort of incredible. I worked on a web series with him, and to
Yeah.
see the love that the this first season has been having is so well deserved. But I know how hard he's worked for it. I know how many drafts he wrote for it. I know the frustration, the tears, the just it's a long process, and no one really sees that. So same thing with um Mr. Walker, Cornelius. He's, you know, I've seen his journey too and how challenging it's been. But, we're now in a place where we are getting slowly but surely the love that I think we feel we have worked for. And it's just beautiful to see. But also, there's a breadth of filmmakers, Remy Moses. I mean, Remy's film Saving Art is yeah, beautiful film, and
Yeah.
he went to LFS. Now he's got an award-winning grad film, and Remy is somebody who I think she's in the game for a long time. Like I've never seen his shorts like 6, 7 years ago. He's made different types of shorts, different genres, but he has such a distinct voice that is really imbued in every work he's done, and to see his journey now, and yeah, it's exciting, very exciting.
I love that. I love that. So, given the point you're at now with
Mm,
um your new feature, what would you say are like what can we look forward to from you moving
yeah, I
forward?
don't want to speak too soon because it's like things are happening, but you're like, yeah,
Very
you're always very cautious. You're kind of
yes.
like, because nothing is really locked in stone. I always
Mhm,
just say it. I think I saw somewhere as a friend of mine, Liam White,
mhm,
incredible filmmaker. He's got a new film called Housewarming, by the way, that's playing festival circuit. But Liam shared that he's developing his first feature film with Escape Plan, and so they made Saint Maud, the new film Love Lies Bleeding,
okay.
um, and it's a big company, but he says that until he's on set filming, he's not going to get excited yet. So until I was
I
actually
hear you.
walking yesterday, I was just walking in like, around sort of Charing Cross area, walking, and there are times I just walk and I just imagine myself on set of my film, of my first feature. Like you just imagine I just imagine talking with my actors. I imagine, talking with my DOP Orland and talking about the block and the framing. I see the film so intimately. It's so clear in my head. Like I see the world, I see the characters, I see the costume. It's so clear. And all I want is the opportunity to be able to do that. And yesterday I was walking and I'm just like, I imagine myself getting up at 5 a.m. for those early shoots, but smiling, on the way to set at 5 a.m. when everything is dark, when you have a long day ahead of you, your 5 a.m. starts to 8, 9 p.m., I sort of imagine myself, even on the difficult days, shooting, you know, the challenges of navigating problems with my DOP, with my art director, with my costume designer. Like I imagine the pain, the pleasure, the challenges, but I was just smiling to myself. Like, I cannot wait. I can see it. I can taste it. And the fact that it's closer now than ever, I have to guard my heart. I have to protect myself, basically, because what's happened in the past 4 years is I get carried away, and you just see yourself on set, and then you get a news that it's not, you don't maybe get that funding, or it's not quite happening, or so I guess cautiously optimistic, you're right, and that's the nature of that. I think it's like any filmmaker can relate with the idea of festivals. When you apply for festivals, when you get the no's, it's heartbreaking. So when I apply to festivals now, I never just think, oh, I've already got an in, because you'd never know. It's just, I wouldn't say it's luck, but it's definitely just being patient and accepting whatever comes, yes or no. With this feature, it feels closer. I mean, I've got a great producer in Jack O'Brien. Jack is phenomenal. We linked up 2021, and Jack has actually just finished his first feature film called Unfallen.
Mhm.
Beautiful film, and yeah, he loves my feature. We've had a lot of discussions around it, and Jack works for 16 Films. Ken Loach's company, and they have a history of making beautiful, socially conscious films, but powerful films that are bold in their aesthetic and their message. And working with them has been a blessing because, yeah, Jack believes in me and he's pushing the film. And yeah, so that's been it's so good finally to it's real that it is happening. I just have to keep on praying, keep on working, and stay grounded until I'm on set, basically.
I
So
love that, bro. We are looking forward to it, and I'm
me
so
too, me
happy.
too,
I'm
bro. Me
so
too.
happy
Yeah.
you're
Hmm.
at this point, man. So yeah, thank you.